Many productions would not be possible without the ability to quickly move scenery, curtains, or lighting equipment over the stage area. In order to accomplish this task, our theater was built with a counterweight rigging system installed. This system allows one technician to move a significant amount of weight with relatively little effort. Today, we'll look at a few of the basics when it comes to operating this system. First, let's examine the components that make up the lock or operator rail. Each line set is controlled via a long rope we call the purchase line. That attaches to the arbor, which is where we store the weight used to counterbalance the objects attached to the batten. As the arbor moves up or down, the batten, attached via lift lines, moves in the opposite direction. Take a look at this diagram. The counterweight rigging system is made up of many parts. However, each of the parts on this diagram are duplicated for each different line set. Our theater has 29 different line sets. The batten is a pipe that is suspended over the stage area and can be used to suspend lighting, curtains, or scenery. Over the stage are several pulleys called loft blocks. Lift lines are threaded through these pulleys and attached to the batten. The lift lines run over through another larger pulley called the head block. This pulley has many grooves or sheaves that can accommodate all the lift lines as well as the purchase line. The purchase line runs over the head block and attaches to the top and bottom of the arbor. The arbor is where we store weights to counterbalance the load on the batten. The arbor is suspended by the lift lines, but it also travels in a special frame called the T-track. This is a track that runs the full length of the arbor travel. At the top and bottom of the track are crash bars, which are pieces of hardwood that the arbor will bump against to prevent it from moving too high or too low. The purchase line is what the rigging operator uses to control the travel of the line set. The purchase line also runs through a rope lock on the operator or lock rail. We'll talk about this in a moment. Some lock rails are located on the stage floor, but ours is on a catwalk about 20 feet over the stage. Lastly, the purchase line runs down through a tension block which is height adjustable to keep appropriate tension on the purchase line. To move a line set, one simply pulls down on the purchase line. Pulling the rope closest to you will cause the batten to go down and the arbor to go up. Conversely, pulling the rope furthest from you will raise the batten and lower the arbor. Take care when raising battens. Because our theater has an elevated lock rail, the arbor will pass the lock rail as you move a line set. It is okay to grab the arbor rods to continue moving the set, but be aware of the position of the arbor when you are moving a batten up. Another important thing to consider is ensuring that the weight on both sides of the line set, arbor, and batten is balanced and as close together as possible. An out-of-balance line set can be a very dangerous thing. If you have 100 pounds on the batten, you need to have a matching 100 pounds on the arbor as well. Keep in mind, the total weight you will be moving is the sum of the batten and arbor loads. Another consideration is cable weight. As the arbor travels down, the lift lines over the top of the arbor will add weight to that side of the line set. Think of the whole line set as a seesaw, with the head block as the fulcrum. The more cable on the arbor side means that the arbor gets heavier. Conversely, as the batten travels down, the cable weight will increase on that side. What this means for an operator is that a line set may feel balanced in the middle, but will gradually get out of balance as it is moved one way or the other. That means it may seem very heavy to pull at first, but by the time the arbor is approaching the crash bar, it will move easier. Keep in mind, an empty batten will still have weight, so the arbor will have a plate painted yellow to indicate the weight of the batten. Do not remove this weight. At this point, you are hopefully realizing that there is a high potential for injury when using this equipment, as it involves moving a significant amount of weight overhead. We follow careful steps to make sure that we operate this system safely and minimize the risk potential for injury. As we mentioned before, the rigging operator typically works from the lock rail. Let's examine the controls you will be using. You should already recognize the purchase line. You can see here as it travels through the rope lock. Keep in mind, while this is called a lock, it will not prevent an out-of-balance line set from moving. It will only prevent a set from moving up to 50 pounds out of balance, but it should not be trusted to hold an out-of-balance line set. The lock has a safety ring which prevents it from accidentally being opened. To unlock a line set, you pull down on this handle. Prior to moving a line set, you should make sure that it is balanced. It's a good practice to know a set is safe to move prior to unlocking. An easy way to test for balance is to feel the purchase line above and below the rope lock. They both should have equal amounts of tension. If the line above the lock is tighter, that indicates that the arbor is heavier than the batten and is pulling down. If the line above the lock is looser, that means the batten is heavier than the arbor and is pulling it up. If you are not sure if a line set is in balance, don't unlock it. If the arbor is above you, you can also check the tension of the front and back lines. You are just trying to see which way the arbor might be pulling the purchase line. The first step in moving a line set is to check the stage area. Make a visual and oral confirmation that the area on stage where you are planning on moving the line set is clear of people and equipment. Typically, the operator will call out the name and location of the set moving and its intended direction. For example, upstage traveler moving in would mean that you are planning to move the most upstage traveler curtain down. If you are on stage when a line set moving call is heard, you can reply clear if it is safe or hold if it is not. Once you have verified it's safe to move, you may remove the safety ring, squeeze the purchase line together, and pull the ring up and over the lock handle. Next, place one hand on the purchase line and one on the lock handle. Never unlock a line set without one hand on the line. Lower the lock and begin pulling the rope in the direction you want to move the line set. When moving a line set down, we say that it is moving in or into the view of the audience. When moving a line set up, we say that it is moving out. Remember, pull on the closest rope to move a batten in and the furthest rope to move a batten out. Some people find that pulling on the purchase line is rough on their hands. There are gloves located on the lock rail for your protection. Once the line set is in the desired position, return the lock to the upright position and replace the safety ring. Never leave a line set unlocked and unattended. It's a good idea to keep an eye on the stage or have a spotter to keep a lookout in case the line set is about to hit something or to make sure you don't miss your mark. Speaking of which, you might be wondering how you'll know how far to move the line sets. For that, we use marks called spikes. On each purchase line, there are at least two spots that we typically mark, an in and an out trim. The in trim is marked with a piece of red tape. This is the height the line set needs to be at to be in perfect view of the audience. Out trim is marked with a green piece of tape. This is usually at the bottom of the arbor travel, so take care when approaching green marks. If you go too fast, the arbor might hit the crash bar too hard. This can damage the line set. Some line sets with curtains also have a blue tape spike. This indicates the halfway travel point. On occasion, it is useful to have curtains set to half height during a stage set. To set a spike mark, place the line set at the desired trim level. You may need a spotter to help with this. Once you are certain you are at the correct trim, carefully and tightly wrap the rope just above the lock with 2 wraps of tape. Make sure you use the appropriate color. Another means of marking trim is to use a piece of yarn or cloth threaded between the rope twist. When striking a line set, it is a good idea to remove old spike marks so as not to confuse future riggers. With many different line sets, it is important to keep track of which purchase lines move which batten. Along the lock rail, there are several laminated cards, one for each line set. These are numbered and also labeled to indicate what a line set is being used for. Unused sets are labeled spare, while dedicated line sets may have labels such as First Electric or Mid Traveler written on them to indicate what that set is used for. Labels also indicate the area of stage a line set occupies. For example, Legs 1 is the most downstage leg curtain, while Legs 5 is the furthest upstage. To relabel a line set, just wipe off the writing and use a grease pencil to write in the new use for that line set. Labeling is an important step in making sure the rail operator can find the right batten to move. Also useful is a line set schedule. This is posted on the lock rail and also includes information about the capacity of each line set in our system. We have already talked about the importance of balanced line sets. If you add weight to a batten, it will naturally become heavier than the arbor. In order to keep the balance, we need to find a way to adjust the weight on the arbor accordingly. To do this, we utilize the loading rail or gallery. This catwalk or bridge is at the very top of the arbor travel. Remember, when the batten is all the way in, the arbor is now at the top of the T-track. The standard procedure to load weight on a line set is to bring the batten all the way in. The lock rail operator will lock and secure the line set and signal down to the stage that it is now safe to attach to the batten. The stage crew then works on securing equipment to the batten. Once the load is secure, the stage crew will indicate to the loader that they are ready to attach the weight. The order here is important. Let's look at a scale model to examine this process more in depth. Say for instance that the loader began adding weight to the arbor prior to the stage crew attaching the equipment to the batten. This creates a dangerous out-of-balance situation where the arbor is elevated and heavier than the batten, which is at stage level. If enough weight is applied, the lock will not hold the purchase line and it will begin to slip and run out of control. This situation is known as a runaway, and it is very dangerous. Runaways are entirely preventable through good communication and making certain that no mistakes are made in the order of adding or removing weight. If a line set begins to move rapidly out of control, you should never attempt to stop it by grabbing the purchase line. Chances are it will be moving fast enough and with enough inertia to either pick you up and slam you into the loading bridge, or give you serious rope burn and possibly pull your hand into the lock. Technicians have been seriously injured or killed in these situations. If the arbor is overloaded and elevated, it will fall rapidly, raising the batten. Often, weight will be ejected from the arbor when it crashes and result in the batten then becoming heavier and leading to a second runaway. The batten will often crash into the overhead structure and may break anything in its path, including loft blocks and sprinkler pipes. Debris and weights may be launched from any part of the system during a runaway. Once you lose control of a line set in this fashion, the only thing to be done is to shout a warning and take cover. Sir Isaac Newton is your new head rigger for the time being. Adding weight to the arbor when it is up, or taking weight off the batten when it is on the stage deck should be considered carefully. A common parlance in the rigging community is, keep your weight down, meaning, don't create a situation where the highest part of the line set weighs more than its lowest. Good communication between the loading gallery, lock rail, and stage deck is a key component. With novice crews, it is important to take your time and double-check each step prior to removing or adding weight. Also worth mentioning is that you should never attempt this type of rigging work unless under the direct supervision of a knowledgeable rigger. Back to our scenario. Once the stage crew is finished attaching the load to the batten, the loader can determine how much weight is needed. This can be complicated if the scenery is something non-standard. But in the case of lighting, we know and list the weight of each of our fixtures in our theater. The loader uses arbor weights which securely fit into the arbor. Arbor weights are specific to each theater and should not be interchanged. In our theater, we have two types, 20 pounds and 40 pounds. They both look similar, but the 20 pounds are slightly smaller than the 40. When loading weight, it is a good idea to use a fall arrest harness. The harness will prevent a loader from falling if he were to slip. A general rule of thumb is to use fall arrest whenever it is possible for 50% or more of your body to be out over an unprotected edge. The fall arrest harness has a large D-ring on the back which attaches to a lanyard. The other side of the lanyard should be securely fastened to the rail opposite the arbor side of the bridge. Once the loader is ready, he begins by loosening the thumb screws on the top plate of the arbor. Underneath the top plate, there are several spreader plates. These help keep the arbor rods from buckling if an arbor crash occurs, and should be placed between arbor weights every 2 feet of weight in the stack. To keep these out of the way of loading, you will find several 1-inch spring clips on the loading bridge. Simply raise the plates out of your way and put a spring clip on the arbor rod beneath them to secure them. Once the plates are clear, it is time to make sure the area is clear. The loader will call down to the lock rail and stage deck that loading is about to begin. Clear the rail is the protocol in our space. All personnel must then clear the area around the loading bridge, which also includes the lock rail. If the loader accidentally dropped a weight, it could bounce off any number of things on its way down. You definitely do not want to be in its path. A word about lifting. When picking up arbor weights, it's important to be careful not to lift with your back. Be mindful of twisting or rotating in extreme directions so as not to strain yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It is often safer to load more 20-pound weights than it is to load less 40-pound weights. Use your best judgment and don't feel pressured to do anything that you are not comfortable with. Also, it is a good idea to wear gloves while loading. Some weights have sharp corners and it is easy to scrape or pinch your fingers while loading and unloading. After verifying the area is clear, the loader will then carefully set the short edge of the weight on top of the weight stack. This allows him to maneuver it into position. The notched ends of the weight fit in between the arbor rods. Watch your fingers when laying the weight flat. Once the weight is in position, The top plate is secured and the thumb screws must be tightened. This prevents weights from bouncing out of the arbor in the event of a crash. The loader then calls, "All clear," and work can resume on the stage. When storing unused weights, it is important not to stack them higher than the kick plate at the edge of the catwalks in order to ensure that there is no way for them to be accidentally knocked over. It is the job of the head flyman to then verify that the weight of the arbor and the weight of the batten are close enough to move the set safely. Ideally, the weight of the load on the batten is calculated prior to the equipment even being brought on stage. Many set designs will include such information. On occasion, we will have to suspend loads without having accurate information about their weight. In these cases, the loader must carefully add weight until the set is balanced. So long as the proper loading order has been followed, it will not be possible to lift the batten until the set is balanced. Care must be taken to not overload the arbor. Therefore, this is a delicate procedure. Suffice to say, loading must be done under the supervision of the technical director. Do not attempt this on your own. Unloading is essentially the reverse of loading. The line set is brought into its lowest trim and weight is removed from the arbor first. If a batten is stripped completely, the weight can safely be removed down to the first yellow brick. It is important that the batten remain loaded until the arbor is unloaded to the desired weight. Again, communication here is paramount. Loading and unloading is the most dangerous part of operating a rigging system, as it by definition creates situations where line sets will go out of balance. It takes a careful and well-trained crew to do the job safely. Hopefully by now you understand the basics of how to operate a rigging system in a theater environment. While we covered a lot of ground, there is still a lot to learn and practice before you should consider doing this work on your own. For now, continue working with the professionals and learning as much as possible. Thanks for watching.